She kicked me out on my birthday, not with screaming or drama, just a quiet, "I think you should go." The cake was still on the counter, 27 candles unlit. The rain had just started, tapping against the windows like it was trying to warn me about something I couldn't see yet. She stood by the door with her arms crossed, not angry, not sad, just distant, like she'd already made peace with a decision I didn't know was coming. "What do you mean, go?" I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I need space," she said. That's all. No explanation. No fight that led us here. Just those 3 words and the sound of rain getting louder. I looked at the cake. Chocolate, my favorite. She'd remembered. Or maybe she'd ordered it out of habit, the same way we'd been living. Going through motions that looked like love but didn't feel like it anymore. I grabbed my jacket, my keys. I didn't argue. Part of me thought if I stayed calm, if I gave her the space she asked for, she'd realize this was a mistake. That we could talk tomorrow. That birthdays weren't supposed to end like this. The door closed behind me with a soft click, not a slam. That almost made it worse. There was no anger to hold on to, no heat to burn through, just cold, quiet rejection on the day I was supposed to feel celebrated. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the house through the rain-blurred windshield. The lights were still on. I could see her shadow moving past the living room window, life continuing as if I'd already been erased from it. I started the engine and drove to a friend's couch, the cake still sitting on that counter, the candles still unlit. That night, I thought the worst thing she'd done was choosing my birthday to end us. But that wasn't the worst thing she'd already hidden from me. We met the normal way. Through friends, at a party where neither of us wanted to be. She was the first person I talked to, and somehow we didn't stop talking until the sun came up. It felt easy, natural, like we'd known each other in some other life and were just picking up where we left off. The first year was the kind of love people write songs about. Morning coffee made just the way I liked it. Notes left on the bathroom mirror. Her laugh when I did something ridiculous just to hear it. We built routines that felt like home. Sunday grocery runs, Tuesday movie nights, Friday dinners where we'd cook together, badly, and laugh about it. I trusted her the way you trust gravity, completely, without question. We moved in together after 18 months. It made sense. We were already spending every night together anyway. The apartment was small but ours. We painted the walls a soft gray she picked out. I built the bookshelf she'd been wanting. We argued once about where to put the couch, and it felt important at the time, but we laughed about it later. Life felt steady, safe, predictable in the best way. But somewhere around year 2, something shifted. It was subtle at first. The kind of change you don't notice until you look back and realize the landscape has completely transformed. She started working later, coming home quieter. The notes stopped appearing. The morning coffee became something I made for myself. Conversations got shorter, surface level. When I asked how her day was, she'd say fine and turn on the TV. I told myself it was normal. Relationships settle. The fire doesn't burn as hot, but it burns longer, steadier. I told myself we were just growing up, getting comfortable. I thought silence meant peace. I was wrong. The phone started living face down. It wasn't dramatic. No suspicious calls or midnight texts. Just a slow, steady habit of never leaving it visible. When it rang, she'd glance at it, silence it, and smile like nothing happened. Work stuff, she'd say. Just my sister. Group chat being annoying. Every excuse made sense on its own, but they started stacking up, one on top of the other, until I could feel the weight of them even when I didn't want to. She started going out more. Thursday nights became standing plans I wasn't invited to. Just need some friend time, she'd say, and I'd nod because I understood that. Everyone needs space. Everyone needs their own life outside of a relationship. But when I suggested we do something together on a Saturday, she'd be tired. When I asked to meet these friends she was spending so much time with, she'd change the subject. Gently, smoothly, like she'd practiced. "You're overthinking," she'd say when I brought it up. And maybe I was. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was the problem for noticing too much, for asking too many questions. So I stopped asking. I chose peace over confrontation. I chose trust over suspicion. I chose to believe that love meant not digging, not pushing, not demanding answers to questions I was afraid to hear. I started sleeping on my side of the bed. She slept on hers. The space between us grew wider every night. One morning, I woke up and realized I couldn't remember the last time she'd said she loved me. Not because she stopped loving me, at least, that's what I told myself, but because we'd both stopped saying the things that used to matter. I still made her coffee, though. I still folded her laundry. I still did all the small things that said, "I love you," without words, hoping she'd notice, hoping it was enough. The first real answer was waiting in a drawer. 3 days after my birthday, she texted me, brief, clinical. "You can come get your stuff on Thursday, I'll be out." No, how are you? No, we should talk. Just logistics, like we were roommates settling a lease, not two people who'd built a life together. Thursday came. I drove to the apartment with a duffel bag and a knot in my stomach. The key still worked. I stood outside the door for a full minute, key in the lock, trying to decide if walking in would feel like trespassing in my own life. I turned the knob. The apartment looked the same. Same couch. Same crooked picture frame I'd never fixed. Same coffee mug in the sink. Mine, not hers. She hadn't even washed it. That small detail hurt more than it should have. I moved through the space like a ghost. My toothbrush from the bathroom. My books from the shelf. My hoodie she used to steal, now folded neatly on the bed, like she couldn't wait to be rid of it. The house felt different, not just empty, but deliberately rearranged. Like she'd been preparing for my absence long before my birthday. Like she'd been editing me out, piece by piece, and I'd been too distracted to notice. I was almost done when I saw it. The drawer in her nightstand, slightly open. Just a crack, enough to see a corner of something inside. I'd never opened that drawer. It was hers. Her space. Her privacy. And I'd respected that because that's what you do when you trust someone. But standing there, in the apartment that no longer felt like mine, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the handle. Every instinct told me not to look, to pack my bag and leave and let whatever was inside stay buried. But something stronger told me I needed to know. I pulled the drawer open. It was small, silver, simple, but unmistakably deliberate, a ring. Not mine, not anything I'd ever seen her wear. It sat in a velvet box, new, unscratched, next to a folded receipt and a card with handwriting I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I picked up the receipt. The date jumped out at me first. 3 weeks before my birthday. The ring had been purchased 3 weeks before she kicked me out. I opened the card. The message was short, written in clean, careful letters. "For when you're ready. I'll wait as long as it takes. J. J." I didn't know a J. She'd never mentioned a J. But this J knew her well enough to buy her a ring. To write a card like they were planning a future. To be patient while she figured out how to leave me. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the ring box like it might explode. My chest felt tight. My breath came in shallow gasps. But I wasn't crying, I wasn't screaming, I wasn't anything, just numb. Everything started clicking into place, the late nights. The phone turned face down, the distance. The way she'd stopped saying we and started saying I. The way she'd looked at me on my birthday, not with anger, but with something worse. Pity, guilt, relief that it was almost over. She hadn't kicked me out because she needed space. She'd kicked me out because someone else was already taking up the space I used to fill. My birthday wasn't the end. It was just the day she finally had the courage to say out loud what she'd been planning for weeks. Maybe months. I put the ring back, closed the drawer, grabbed my bag. and I realized something that made my stomach turn. She had already left. I just hadn't caught up yet. She came home while I was still there. I heard her key in the lock, heard her stop when she saw my shoes by the door. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she stepped inside slowly, like she was approaching something fragile. "I didn't think you'd still be here," she said. "I found the ring." Her face didn't change. No shock, no panic. Just a slow, quiet exhale, like she'd been waiting for this moment and was almost relieved it had finally come. "I was going to tell you," she said. "When?" She didn't answer. I stayed calm. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the ring at her or demand explanations I already understood. I just stood there, waiting, because I wanted to hear how she'd explain this, how she'd frame herself. "It's not what you think," she started, and I almost laughed. Because it was exactly what I thought. She told me about Jay, how they'd met at work, how it started as friendship, then became something else. How she didn't mean for it to happen, how she'd been confused, struggling, trying to figure out what she wanted. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, and her voice cracked just enough to sound sincere. But I wasn't listening to her words anymore. I was watching her body language, the way she stood closer to the door than to me, the way she kept glancing at her phone, the way she looked at me like I was an obstacle she'd finally managed to move past. "You kicked me out on my birthday," I said quietly. "You didn't do that because you were confused. You did it because you'd already made your choice." She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. "I needed time," she said finally. "I needed to figure things out." "You had time. You just spent it with someone else." The silence that followed was the loudest sound in the room. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And maybe she was. Maybe she did feel bad about the timing, the method, the way it all unfolded. But sorry doesn't undo the planning. Sorry doesn't erase the receipts, the dates, the ring hidden in the drawer. I picked up my bag. "I hope it was worth it," I said. And I walked out. This time, I was the one who closed the door. The first week was the hardest. I stayed on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., replaying every moment, every conversation, every sign I'd missed. My brain looped the same questions over and over. When did it start? How long had she been lying? Was any of it real? I felt stupid, blind, like everyone else had seen it coming except me. I blamed myself for not asking more questions, for choosing peace over truth, for being the kind of person who trusted completely because I thought that's what love was supposed to be. But slowly, something shifted. I stopped asking what I'd done wrong and started asking what she'd chosen to hide. I stopped apologizing to myself for being trusting and started recognizing that trust isn't weakness, betrayal is. The ring became something different in my mind. Not evidence of my failure, but proof that I'd loved someone fully, honestly, without hedging my bets or keeping backup plans. She'd needed an escape route. I hadn't. And that wasn't something to be ashamed of. I started rebuilding. Small things first. A new apartment. A new routine. Mornings that were mine. Coffee made the way I liked it, not the way we used to share it. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never feel like enough. I stopped hoping she'd realize what she'd lost. I started realizing what I'd gained, myself, my clarity, my refusal to accept silence as love. The loneliness was real, but it was cleaner than the loneliness I'd felt lying next to her in that bed, wondering why the person I loved most felt like a stranger. I learned the difference between patience and self-erasure. I learned that staying isn't always strength. Sometimes leaving is. A year later, my birthday came around again. This time I didn't wait for someone else to make it special. I didn't sit by the phone hoping for a message that never came. I didn't measure my worth by whether or not someone remembered. I took myself out, bought my own cake, lit my own candles. And I realized something I hadn't expected. That birthday, the one where she kicked me out, was the first day of my real life. Not because she left, but because I finally stopped shrinking myself to fit into someone else's plans. I used to think love meant sacrifice, silence, letting things go for the sake of peace. I thought being patient meant accepting less than I deserved and calling it maturity. I was wrong. Real love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't hide rings in drawers or plan exits on your birthday. It doesn't make you feel crazy for noticing the truth. Real love shows up, speaks up, stays. And when it doesn't, you owe it to yourself to walk away. I don't know where she is now. I don't know if Jay gave her the future that ring promised. I don't know if she ever thinks about me, about us, about the birthday she chose to end things. And honestly, I don't need to know. Because the story isn't about her anymore. It's about the person I became after I stopped waiting for her to choose me. It's about the morning I woke up and realized I didn't miss her. I missed the version of myself that believed love was supposed to hurt that much. That birthday didn't take my home. It gave me permission to build a new one where I'm not a guest, one where my presence isn't conditional, one where I don't have to find hidden rings to know the truth. So here's what I learned. Some people will love you until someone else comes along. And that's not your failure, it's theirs. Your job isn't to hold on tighter. It's to recognize when you're the only one holding on at all. And sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you is also the thing that saves you. She kicked me out on my birthday, and I spent the next year learning how to thank her for it.